All right, welcome everybody. It's Chris Petri. Thanks so much for coming by. We're going to have a great time. We're actually going to paint some fruits and vegetables here. These are great things you can just have fun with and paint and draw and paint. You can find these in your refrigerator and on your countertop. Quick, easy things. Grab a tomato, grab a lemon, grab an apple, grab an orange. Do these once in a while. They're really going to help you a lot with your techniques and your methods that you work with when you're doing your watercolors. So we're going to cover in this video a really fine-tuned approach of how you're going to paint each of these this subject matter. We did a lemon first, and we did our tomato, green apple, and then finally our orange. We're going to go each step of the way on each of these items. We do them one at a time. You'll see how you draw each of these, how you mix your colors for each of these one at a time as we paint them through, the techniques and methods that you'll use to get these washes done. And it's a lot of fun, enjoyable, stress-free. You're going to learn how to mix colors first ahead of time so that you don't have to worry once you start putting your brush on your paper with your watercolor. You're going to have everything mixed up in your palette. We'll show you the colors to use for each of these. Everything's going to be all planned out for you. You're going to have a great time doing this video. Yes, this might not be a masterpiece painting, but these are the fundamentals of watercolor that if you practice these will wind up being actually great finished looks that you're going to have in your watercolor paintings that are going to actually just appear because you've practiced them ahead of time and you've practiced them many times. And then it actually just winds up becoming the way your watercolors will look eventually if you're just practicing them on an ongoing basis. So let's get started. Okay, so we just saw the finished paintings that we did, compositions basically of the different fruits. We did an apple, a lemon, a tomato, and an orange. So you'll see now how we're going to actually get to that end result that we just were showing you, the finished painting or the finished compositions. We had 4 of these. So this is kind of a fun thing to do if you actually want to just practice up on some composition type ideas. We're going to kind of have like 2 major themes we want to kind of cover here. One is light on subject matter, like we're going to do obviously fruit and vegetables, so the main thing is we're going to kind of key in on where the light's coming from, and we're going to use a Sharpie marker, of course, to kind of draw on our tape. We have everything taped out here, so we kind of are going to just basically start out by saying that we made 4 separate smaller sections of our watercolor paper. I used this is Fabriano paper. It's an actual watercolor block, Fabriano watercolor block, Artistico white paper. Fabriano is a great paper to use, and you can use any watercolor paper, of course. So I just took the artist tape and went right around the outside edge with one pass. So here we go around with one strip of tape around the outside edge, but on the inside edges we want to add 2. And what I did is I just took my ruler. So I took a ruler, basically a T-square ruler, which you can kind of set up on the edge of the watercolor block, and you get a perfect straight line every time. So basically I put a center mark on the perfect center line of this watercolor block paper, and then I just drew a line there across lightly, and then I put one piece of tape on each side of that line, and then I did the same thing this way too. I made a perfect center line across the pad of paper here, and then I put one pass of tape on each side of that line like so, and I overlap them a little bit so there's no paper showing in between, and that gives you basically perfectly 4 sections of composition here, where when we lift up the tape you'll have everything beautifully bordered with a bit of white paper around the edge, like almost like a mat or a frame for each of these compositions. And you can also trim this down with a scissors once you're done doing these compositions, or you can just leave it as a whole sheet of paper with these 4 compositions together in this format like this, and then you can have it. You can put it in a folder, pin it up in your studio, put it on the refrigerator. Maybe if it comes out really fantastic, hey, why not put it in a frame, mat it and frame it, put it in a frame, something, if you've something really good here, because we're going to key in on some really interesting things, and we'll kind of show you as we go here what we're doing. So first thing we're going to do is let's do our lemon first. And we'll do this over here on this side of the paper. So I'll situate my lemon right here on the, like that. And you can kind of see that this lemon is, the light's coming from the top. Actually, most of the bright light's coming from this direction going this way. So you'll see the brightest light is right here. You see a little bit of a bright white light highlight there on the lemon, so we're going to make sure we capture that. And you have shadows here on the right side underneath the lemon. We have to capture that too as well. And also too, we notice that it's brighter, lighter paint as far as tonal values. You have a brighter lemony yellow up top of this lemon here where the light is strongest. And then underneath here, you'll see there is a little bit of a shadow on the lemon. So the yellow is a little bit more like yellow ochre with a little maybe raw umber in there, a little bit of blue perhaps, you know, to shadow it a little bit, because you can see there is a shadow on the underside of this lemon over here. So we want to capture those main effects as we paint this lemon. And I think if we do that, we're actually going to have a really nice painting composition. So let's get started. The first thing I'll do is I'll start out here, and I'll start up top, and what I'm going to do is just carefully go a little bit at a time. I'm not going to try to just do a big circle like this and then that's it. I want to kind of go carefully and look at the lemon. I'm keeping my eye on my paper and my lemon. I'm going back and forth with my eyes, just going a little bit, stopping, a little bit, stopping, because I'm looking at the lemon. So I'm actually just bouncing my eyes back and forth from my drawing to the lemon, back to the drawing, kind of like a slow bouncing of my eyes back and forth, so that I'm continuing to look at the angles, the curves, and that's all we have to do, and then we can get a really good representation of this lemon here, and then like this. And that looks pretty good. Now that we have that, we can also have our shadow. And I'll just sort of make the shadow somewhat like this, just at the bottom of the lemon. And what I'd also like to do is add a edge of the table in a sense, even though it's not here and you can't see it here. I'm going to just draw a level line. You can use a ruler. I think I have a small ruler, so I can use a small ruler like this and just set it on top of the paper like so. So this way I can get a kind of a more level line that looks really accurate all the way across. So that's like a table. So it's kind of nice to add a little bit of a line across there. It gives you like a feeling of the lemon sitting on a table. That's important, because if you just draw a lemon with no line back here representing a table, your fruit will tend to look like it's floating in space. And so you want to kind of have a feeling of the fruit setting on a table or some kind of base on there. So that's important to kind of remember. So once we have that, we are in pretty good shape here. So now what we'll do is we'll get our brush ready. So I'm going to use a number 4 Da Vinci travel brush, which is this is really a beautiful brush, and it's also natural hair. So this is a sable hair brush. And what we'll do is let's set ourselves up for success here. Let's kind of pre-mix our colors that we're going to need for this lemon first in our palette. Then we can just go in and kind of like just take the colors and transfer it from our palette right over to our painting. So it's almost like we're working ahead of ourselves a little bit. So here's the lemony yellow. That's where the brightest part of the lemon's going to be. That's the bright lemon part of painting or the actual lemon itself, right? Then we said I'll rinse the brush off a little bit. You can always rinse your brush off and then dry off a little bit of the water on a tissue or paper towel just to check off a little bit of water. Big help, a lot of times, because sometimes that brush gets too much water in it, and next thing you know, you have floods of water everywhere. So we don't want that. So now we're going to put some yellow ochre over here, and that's sort of for the shadow color underneath. And while you're doing that, you can add a little bit of cerulean blue to that yellow ochre, just to kind of have a little bit of a coolness to it as well. It is a shadowy color. And then maybe we'll have some just cadmium yellow. So this was cadmium yellow lemon, which is kind of like that cool yellow. You kind of see how that's kind of cool, that yellow. It looks like it has some touch of green in it, so it's kind of a cooler look to it. And then this yellow, the cadmium yellow here, that has kind of a touch of orange in it, the yellow. So it's kind of a warmer yellow. So you have a warm yellow and a cool yellow. And then we have our yellow ochre with a little bit of cerulean blue. And I think with those colors, and we could also maybe add a little bit of cobalt blue too. That won't hurt with the yellow ochre. So you have yellow ochre, cobalt blue, and a little bit of cerulean blue over here. I think that's enough. That those colors right here that we have all set up are going to be enough to get us perfectly ready to go here for our lemon. So the first thing I would do is I would take my cadmium yellow lemon, and what I'll do is I'll start here. And what I want to do is make sure I leave that bright highlight on the lemon. So I want to paint around that like this and just make a little patch around there just to leave some of that light there. And then the rest we can kind of just paint that whole lemon just like that with the cadmium lemon yellow. That's fine. And we can go right into the shadow area there. Now this is where you're kind of working kind of expeditiously. We don't want to kind of delay too much because we want to flow our shadow into the bottom of the lemon as well. So let's do that. Let's take the cadmium yellow, which is that warm yellow, and let's get that over here. So now we have the cadmium lemon yellow up top. That's the brightest light. Then we have the cadmium yellow. We mix that in there for the center of the lemon there. Then we go in and we get some of that yellow ochre here for that shadow color underneath. Wow, look how good that looks. That's the shadow of the underside of the lemon. And then while we're there, let's get the shadow right into the bottom there. Cobalt blue and cerulean blue with some of the yellow ochre. Like that. And let's maybe splash a little bit. Why not? Take a couple splashes at it. Looks good. Now we can actually get a little more of that blue. And let's do a little bit of shadow up here on the back of the backdrop. So let's leave our table bright white paper. And let's just have a little bit of a shadow back here just to sort of make sure we're noting on this painting that there is that back of the table with a little bit of shadowing on the wall or backdrop, whatever that might be. It's up to you. You can kind of, as an artist, you'll realize sometimes you're just trying to create a story with your paintings and your compositions, and so if you're just adding little bits of color and things, that's always a good thing. And then I'll pick up some more of that yellow. Let's add some yellow here and there, like that. So we're just kind of harmonizing our colors here. And I think that's fine. And then you can take your brush, rinse off the brush, dry off the paint on a tissue, and then you can maybe blend this paint a little bit around. And you can even, if you want to, sometimes you can take your tissue or a paper towel, very gently, you roll it up like this, and you can also make a highlight up here too by just touching the paper towel or tissue to the top of your lemon, and you get a little bit of a, like that. And that gives you a little more light effect. And then sometimes too, there's a little bit of reflected light in the bottom here, like that. You can do that as well. And maybe a little more blue, cobalt blue, and like that. Rinse off the brush, just dry off the brush maybe a little bit so that there's not too much water on the brush. You can actually work around your colors in your shadows and your washes as long as you're careful to dry off the brush and just use a damp brush. The biggest issue I found when I was painting, when I first was starting my first 2, 3, 4 years or so, was that I was not checking water off on a sponge or a paper towel or a tissue. And a lot of times when I would want to go in and kind of do a little bit of mixing around and things, I would be having the water flood off the brush into the washes, and that would ruin everything. So years now later, I always mention that when I'm kind of sharing my ideas as we're painting here. That's really important. Make sure you can really benefit a lot if you keep that brush kind of damp most of the times with not too much water, and then you'll find that you'll have a little bit of an easier time mixing your colors around on your paintings and not letting things get too out of control with your washes and large splotches of cauliflowers and blossoms and blooms, as they call them, in your paintings. But you could see we have a good, maybe a little bit of raw umber. So there we have it. We have our shadow in underneath our lemon. That looks good. We have the beautiful kind of like 3 tonal values on our lemon. We have the bright light across the top with this highlight. We have that middle cadmium yellow across the center of our lemon. And then we have a little bit of the shadow colors underneath the underside of the lemon, which is the yellow ochre and a little bit of cerulean blue and a touch of cobalt blue for the underside of the lemon, as well as the shadow underneath. And you can kind of see that that really is looking quite good. We could add a little bit of blue in there. Maybe it needs to be a little bit more shadow color under there, like that. And it usually looks good if you can fuse your shadow right together with the bottom of your lemon as you're painting it. And then I again rinse my brush off, dry off all the water, and then just blend those colors there. And then we can also do a touch of burnt umber and French ultramarine blue. Just a little bit of those 2 colors together to get a nice dark. And we'll get that little bit of a stem on the back of the lemon, like that. And there you have it. All right. And then let's see. Let's put your signature on there. Take your, when you're doing your paintings, put your signatures on your paintings. Always try to think of it that way. You're going to sign your paintings. You're the artist. You're going to want to make sure if you're giving this painting to someone, or if you're making a card, like a gift card for somebody or anything like that, or just giving gifts or selling your paintings, you want to have your name on there, your signature, and then maybe your date is fine too, with the date you created it. And there we go. That's a finished composition, but it is something interesting. And I'd be happy to have this in a frame in my house somewhere. I have, a lot of paintings in my studio and in my home, and so that's something that I would really find interesting in the kitchen, maybe, or something like that. When you have like things like this is good kitchen type art. We have different fruits and vegetables and foods and things. All right, so we have this one complete. Let's get started on another. Maybe let's go with a tomato next. So we'll do a tomato. And incidentally, these are styrofoam. I purchased these online. I tried to find the best ones. I've purchased a number of styrofoam and faux fruit online over the years. You know, I kind of tried a few places online, different websites, and I found that there was some really great looking, fantastic looking faux fruit out there you can find online. That's just great. And they're easy. You can just put them in a shoebox or a small bin. And then when you want to do some still life like this, you can just take them right out. Or you can just, if you shop all the time and you have fruits and vegetables in your house all the time, work with those. You know, it's even more better if you can use regular real fruits and vegetables and things like that, or anything still life if you're doing still lifes like we're doing here. If you have the real fruits and vegetables and things like that, please use those. But if you want to always have this just for a rainy day or something where you might not have something you need, you might need a lemon or a tomato in your still life that you're going to set up with some flowers or whatever, and you didn't get to the store or the supermarket, well, then you have some on hand. You can use these. They look just really lovely, and they're pretty close to the original reality. They're looking really good. They're looking very true to life. So let's do our tomato next. We'll do that one over here. So we'll do that one next here. Maybe I'll set this one down here like so. I might have to do a little creative taping or something like that. We'll tape this one down like this, and we'll work like that. So, okay, so let's come back in a second. I'm just going to hit the pause button on my video camera, and we'll come back and we'll have this, we'll tape this up next. I'll show you how I'm going to do that, and we'll start our tomato. All right, so we are getting started again. We took a little break, and always good to take some breaks. You know, you kind of feel a little bit more energy when you come back to your table or however you're working. If you're sitting in a chair, you got a stack tray going and some stuff in your lap, or if you're on your kitchen table, whatever you're doing, you're having a good time painting and drawing here with us all. We're all together, getting better at our watercolors. So now we're going to do a tomato next over here. So I'm going to set up my tomato here, and as you can kind of see, I'm going to have to set it up a little more creatively on this table here so we can kind of see this in more of a truer angle of what we're actually going to draw it. So I'm going to draw it in like more of a two-dimensional angle like this. So what I have to do is I'm going to take a little bit of tape. So I have some Pro Art drafting tape. Artist tape, and I think drafting tape is the best I've found yet. It's the Pro. I don't get paid or anything like that for these videos, or kind of promoting what material art supplies I use. But I like to mention them what I do use so that you can benefit from it. That's all. Maybe someday they'll call me and say, here's $100 for promoting our materials. But I don't think I've ever had that happen yet. But in any case, the Pro drafting tape is the PRO drafting tape. I find that the best tape to really use. I've used this all the time. I've been using this for years. Like I think in the beginning, I just started using different tapes, artist tape. There was other like the there's like usually you'll see called artist tape, or sometimes masking tape. But I found that when I was in the art store a couple times, the art store that locally where I live, they had the Pro drafting tape. And when I found the Pro drafting tape, I realized, wow, it really is the best out of all of the tapes I've found yet. So I basically take a small piece like that, I rip it off there, and then I just roll it up and make a little small circle with it so that I can roll it up and put it down on the paper here. Then I can situate my tomato like that. So I just want to make sure I don't have this roll off the table when we're working. And if you need to use an extra piece or so, you do that. I'm going to actually take a little bit of a larger piece and again roll it up maybe into a pretty good couple times. I rolled it around, and I'll put it underneath there. And this way it's not going to go anywhere. And there we go. Perfecto. All right, there it is. So we're going to do the same thing we did here. Let's just get the tomato going. I'm going to carefully start my tomato. Now what I'm thinking is, I kind of in my mind visually think about it as, how large am I going to make this tomato in this rectangle here? or the lemon that we're using, or an orange, whatever we're drawing here. Still life, we're doing an apple too, and also what else do we have here? We have an apple and also an orange. So we'll do an apple and an orange after we do the tomato. But I think of it as I try to visualize how large I'm going to make this tomato, and I'm going to try to fill up the rectangle pretty much like this. So you can almost do like a light sketch if you want to. First, just some light pencil lines, so you kind of get a feel for how large you're going to want to make that tomato. You wouldn't want to make the tomato like only this big, like that. You kind of want to fill up like we did here with the lemon. Can you see that? We did take this rectangle and sort of really make a large lemon within this rectangle. The problem we would have would be as if we made it too small, and then only like maybe the size of, I don't know, maybe like a small pea or like a grape or something like that. But we want to make sure we fill up our rectangle with plenty of excitement, plenty of this subject matter we have here. That's the key. So therefore we say, okay, let's leave a little bit of space up top here, a little space underneath, and a little bit of space on each side. But we want to make this a large part of the composition. So that's what I did first. I kind of did a light pencil line, only light enough that I can see it. You might not be able to see that. And then once I do that, then I say, oh, now great, I can start my tomato. So I'll do that. I'll start at the top, and I'll just carefully look at the tomato. And again, my eyes are looking back and forth from the paper where I'm drawing to the tomato, back and forth. So I'm carefully going. You can even stop and make a little bit of a dot, or just kind of jog in place, like how joggers run, and then they kind of, if they're at a light on the street or something, there's a red light or something, and they have to stop, they'll kind of jog in place. You can kind of think of it that way. If you have your pencil and your drawing and your contour drawing like we're doing contour drawing here. We're not really sketching. I guess the difference between sketching and contour drawing, if I could explain it, is, let me see if I have some paper. Yes, I do. So I'll just find a piece of paper here. There we go. So sketching might be something like this, where someone might say, okay, I'm going to draw a tomato and I'm going to sketch it. They might do something like this. And that might look good. You might say, oh, that's not too bad. The difference, contour drawing would be where you take one point, you start at one point, and then you carefully look at your subject and keep referencing your subject all the time. And then you stop and maybe, again, like a runner might jog in place until you see your next curve or line or angle. And you can kind of do that and go across. And that's contour drawing, where you're not really quickly rendering this subject. You're carefully looking at it and going slow, like that. And then you might have something like this. So that looks I think this looks much better than kind of sketching out something like this, because you're getting more of a true essence of what the tomato looks like by carefully going around this, by looking back and forth with your eyesight, back and forth, carefully going, stopping when you need to. And in the beginning, it takes a little bit of time, but if you continually practice drawing this way, maybe 10, 15 minutes every day of drawing simple subject matter like this, tomatoes, apples, pencils, pens, whatever you have, you can kind of start to get used to it. And then it becomes easy. It becomes like, just like, any kind of like task that you might do during the day. It might be something where you're driving, or maybe you have to do cooking. Maybe you're doing some cooking, and you kind of, after a while, you just know how to make a certain dish or something, or many different types of dishes. You might say, oh, wow, I'm good at breakfast. I know how to fry an egg, make toast. I know how to make hard-boiled eggs, scrambled eggs, fried eggs. I know how to make French toast. You can, after a while, it gets easy, and then you can just do it. You don't even really think about it. You just pick up the pans, take the eggs out of the fridge, and you get all your ingredients together, and you just start putting it all together, and you don't really think about it too much because you've done it so many times already that it's kind of simple. So that's what I'm if you're practicing your contour drawing like this, you will definitely get used to it. After a while, you'll get the hang of it, but it does take some time. Maybe it could take a year, or maybe a year and a half. Watercolor drawing takes time, so be easy on yourself. Don't get frustrated. You just start wherever you're at and just start practicing 10, 15 minutes every day, and after a while, you're really going to get the hang of it. Trust me, you will. So that's the difference between sketching, which is something like this, kind of going around and saying okay, or doing this carefully, contour drawing, taking your time, looking back and forth with your eyes, and saying, okay, where's the next curve? Where's the next angle? There, it's on the table, then it comes up this way. And then where's the highlight? There's a highlight there. I'll make a little oval. Remember to keep some white paper there when we're painting. And then you could even shade it a little bit too and say, okay, where's the light? Okay, the shading is here. It's darker down here. And there's a little bit of a shadow under there. It's darker under here, and then it's lighter up top here. So you can kind of do all those things as you go, just to get the idea of what we're kind of trying to create here. So again, let's get started one more time, and I'll try to look at the tomato and capture what I'm seeing here. Okay, there. Like that. Then I see a stem like this, and a couple bits of stems there, some green stems. I just put a little bit of green stems. If it doesn't look great, you can kind of just erase it if you find that maybe it just looks good with one stem like this and maybe one bit of leaf there. There's a little bit of a leaf there. You could try different things, but maybe that's good. Looks good like that. All right, that's good. Now the next thing we're going to do is, again, we want to remember to kind of have that table. And again, you can, to make sure you simplify things, you could take a ruler, set it on the paper, just so that you know that your table is going to look somewhat level across, like that. Versus if you started over here with a line here, and then all of a sudden you go up here, that would really kind of be an issue. It wouldn't look too pleasant looking, your composition. But if you put a ruler there, and then you have your ruler there, you can kind of see how that looks much better. That looks perfect, a nice level table, your tomato. And we'll get ready now, and we'll actually put our highlight up here. There's another highlight up here. And again, our light, I always remembered to, I meant to do this, and we'll put another light once we take off the tape. Maybe we'll add another bit of our light insignias, but we kind of know that's our light's coming from mostly this direction like that. Okay, let's take another quick break, and we'll get our red paint going here. We're going to make some beautiful mixes on here. Before we do that, though, we just definitely want to clean up our palette a little bit. So I always mention, if you can have a little bit of paper towel like that, you take it and you just dip it in some water in the water bucket, and you just lift up some of the paint, kind of clean up the palette just a little bit. That's all we need to do. Nothing too crazy. Simple, just a quick clean up there, get most of the color off, and then we're all ready to go. And we'll get started in just a second. And I always mention too, if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. Below on the right hand side, if you want to stick here on my channel with all of us here together, we're painting and drawing in watercolor. We're covering all the basic details of watercolor week after week, month after month, and year after year. So if you're kind of coming here on a regular basis, that's perfect. That's what you want to do. You want to kind of be like going over the same information all the time to get familiar with everything, get familiar with the terminology, the terms of everything, the information. You want to have that information constantly sort of just flowing into your mind as you're working and drawing at home in your studio, in your kitchen, in your den, in your family room, wherever you like to work. You have your artwork, your art table set up, and your art supply set up wherever you like to work, however you set up all of your your studio, your home area where you like to paint and draw, that's what you want to kind of remember, that you want to always be kind of taking in as much information as you can, and that's going to actually really help tremendously, so that it really kind of sticks. And again, if you kind of understand all the terms that we use all the time, if you're hearing it all the time and watching it on a video, you're going to really, really have a much better time remembering everything as you're in the midst of your painting. So if you're in the midst of your painting, creating a beautiful painting, you're going to have all of that information in your mind locked in, and you won't have to second guess yourself. You'll be confident with your painting, your drawing, and you'll just be it'll be free flowing for you as you go. So that's why I always say, if you can subscribe and keep watching all the videos that we create here on my channel, it's going to give you the best advantage to creating the best paintings that you possibly can. And that's what I want. I want all of you to have a lot of fun with watercolor, enjoy it. It's a lot of fun at the end of the day. Don't stress over it. Just have a good time. Learn as much as you can. Put as much time into it as you can. I know some of you are very busy, and you can't always put as much time in as you would like, but as much time as you can put in, that's great. And so we're going to continue on. Let's just take a quick break. We'll come back. We'll be refocused on our tomato here, and we'll get started. Okay, we are going to get started on our tomato. So we got our drawing completed, our contour drawing. We kind of discussed how we developed all of our contour drawing. And the only thing I think we did not render here was the shadow underneath. So we can actually do that. We can just kind of have a bit of a shadow underneath like this. Just an indication of it with a pencil line. And now we're going to actually, I'm going to empty my water over here. So that's just normal procedure here. We're starting a new composition with new colors. So I just empty my water container and then add new fresh water to my water container. I like to use a canteen container for my water. I keep it right to the right of my watercolor table here, my YouTube table, and then I have a sponge here, a small piece of sponge that I take water off. Once I rinse my brush off, I touch the sponge a little bit, take some water off. You can also use a tissue or a paper towel, any kind of paper product, to take a little bit of water off your brush. I tend to find that watercolor artists have a lot of problems with how much water is in their brush. So if you can remember to take a little bit of water off your brush once you rinse your brush, you'll always have a little better success at your paintings, I think, because I know when I first started, I always mention this, when I first started, when I rinsed my brush, I would let the water stay in the brush, and I didn't take any of the water off. And then when I went over to my paints and my palette, it just became a lot more flooded with water because I wasn't checking off a little bit of water. So that's a big help for you. So let's go in and let's get our colors that we're going to need. Let's mix all the colors we're going to need for our tomato. So the first thing we're going to do is cadmium red. Looks like that's going to be our home run color for this tomato. So we'll take some cadmium red straight paint right out of the palette and get that out onto our mixing area like so. Okay, and then I'm looking at my tomato and I'm saying, all right, what's the next color we might have? We could have, for variation's sake, let's maybe add a little bit of, let's say, maybe a little bit of cadmium orange up here. Just a little bit of cadmium orange up top with a little bit of cadmium red mixed into it. Just for some variety. And then what else might we have? I would say maybe some alizarin crimson up here. And then we could rinse off our brush, dry off a little bit of the water on a paper towel, and get a little more cadmium red and sort of mix some cadmium red into that alizarin crimson and orange there, just to sort of have a variation that we can use. And then also too, what else? We need some blue. Let's use some cobalt blue again. And so I'll rinse off my brush, go in, grab some cobalt blue, and not only cobalt blue, which we can do here, maybe a little bit of purple, some ultramarine violet. So we're going to give ourselves a little more interesting color mixes. Ultramarine violet, cobalt blue, and then maybe even some raw umber over here like this, like that. So we're going to have a mixture of really interesting shadow colors like that. And we can also take some of the cadmium red and just sort of add a bit of it too there. And the key point here I want to mention, which a lot of times watercolor artists, I know we all fall into the habit. And do you find that you fall into this habit sometimes? You get some mixes out on your palette and you think you have to sort of mix them all together and just kind of like a blender. Best thing to do is when you get some paint out on your palette, just let it sit as it is and don't really homogenize it together, because it does look a little bit better in your painting if you can kind of see the different color variations in your painting versus kind of mixing it all and swirling it together too much, and then it becomes like kind of a muddy looking color. So just a little bit of an idea there. Variation looks great with watercolor, so always try to remember that. Now let's see if we can think of what we're going to do here. Now we have all our colors mixed out on the palette. Perfect. Now that stress is all over with about what colors am I going to use. You look at a tomato and you say, oh my God, what colors am I going to use? Some people might jump right in and say, oh, I'm just going to use this red and that's it. And you paint one red tomato with just one color. That looks a little bit boring to me. I think you want a little better, more exciting colors in your watercolors. I'm kind of banking on that you do want that. So that's why I'm kind of saying, let's mix up some different colors here so that we have lots of variation of color, and let's not mix them all together and kind of, blend them all together. Let's leave them identifiable, all the different colors. And the next thing we do is we say, well, what are we going to do first? Well, we kind of see here on this tomato that the brightest part of the tomato is where the light is hitting, which we kind of show here. This is your insignia of your light. You always want to have that in your drawings and paintings. So you always look back to it if you ever are in the middle of your painting and you're so focused and having a great time doing your painting, and then you say, oh, I'm in an area right now, I need to figure out where my shadow needs to be. Oh, you look right back there and you say, oh, that's where my shadow needs to be. The light's coming this way. The shadow's got to be over here on the right side of the painting, of the subject subject matter you might be painting. It might be a shack, a house, a tomato, an apple, whatever it is. You'll kind of always know right away when you see that insignia that if the light's coming from this direction, you're going to see the shadow over here on this side, the cast shadow. So, and again, we're looking at the tomato and we're saying the brightest part of the tomato is in the center, and then the shadow areas are on the underside, just like the lemon was. So let's get started. We'll get some more cadmium red there. There we go. And what I'll do is I'll start in the center. We'll leave that little bit of light, which is the highlight on the tomato there. And then I'll just go right around, go back, and we'll grab some more of this. And as far as I'm concerned, hey, why not? Just get the whole thing in there. Let's get that whole bit of color right in there. Then we'll take some of that orange. We'll bring that up top up here. So there's maybe, and I'll even go in over here again. And I'll add a little bit of orange up in here. And then I'll grab some of this shadow color. Let's get that down over here. And let's get that right in there. Fuse that shadow color, which is the purple, which is the ultramarine violet, cobalt blue, and a little bit of raw umber. Let's fuse that all into the shadow color like this, so that we have that kind of couple splashes. And then I also notice a little bit of shadow over here, so let's get that over there. We blend that like this. Then I rinse off my brush, dry off a little bit of the water on a paper towel, tissue, or sponge. And then I use this damp brush to get the top of the tomato, which is pretty much kind of lighter, like that. And maybe it is a little bit, we have a little bit of shadow over here too. So main thing is, we're trying to work kind of quickly, as you can see. And then I'll use just a damp brush after I dry off all the water, just a damp brush there. And I'll just maybe kind of soften one side of that bright highlight there. Like that. That looks pretty good. Then we go in and just mix around a couple colors here. So we want to have our shadow at the back of the table. And also some of this alizarin crimson I wanted to add in there. A couple of splashes. Maybe a touch of green here with burnt umber and cobalt blue, burnt umber, cobalt blue, and a little bit of green. Like this. We just want to have that little bit of color for our stem. So that might be a little different. So we can add some of that over here. That little bit of stem color, we're just going to put that over here too. And then I'll just take a damp brush and splash a little bit over here. So I want to make sure I like that. And again, I'm just adding some colors for the enjoyment of looking at color on the paper. I'll bring this edge of the table over here as well. A little bit of splashing. Like that. And I try to add some of that green and blue while I can. It tends to be, you have to be careful where to add the colors. I mean, add the washes when things are still a little bit damp, but that's a kind of a feel thing. You have to get the feel for watercolor. You'll get better as you paint. Every time you paint, you'll get a little better. Okay, and we have stems. Let's do that. So I rinse off my brush, dry off some of the water, and I'll do a quick little bit of stem here. There we go. Maybe that's too much stem. I think it is too much stem, but I'll leave that as it is. You can always go back with a little touch of white paint. Maybe we'll do that later. We'll come back with a little touch of titanium white paint to maybe touch up a few things that maybe we went overboard on the stems and the leaves on top of this tomato. So we want to maybe fix that a little bit. You can do that. We'll show you how to do that just in a little while, once we're kind of finishing up the painting. We still have two more beautiful still life items. We have an orange and a green apple left. So let's do the green apple and the orange, and then we can go back and touch up anything we might need to. But I think we're so far looking pretty good. And again, I always mention, if you're painting and you do some compositions or paintings, sign your name on there. I'm going to put my name down here. And then the year, 2023, like that. And there we go. We have another composition completed. And I hope we're having a good time here. I hope you're enjoying yourself. And glad you're here. Really happy that you're joining along every week here as we're creating new paintings. This is more of a time where we can actually do some compositions and practice and kind of really drill down on some of the methods and techniques of watercolor that sometimes, if we're doing like a seascape, a landscape, a boat painting, some flower paintings, sometimes we kind of forget about the real nuts and bolts of watercolor and the techniques that we can use. These type of techniques right here with contour drawing, beautiful light effects, shadowing, these type of things are so critical to your watercolors. If you're using these methods and techniques in your watercolors, you're going to have such more, your painting is going to look so much more beautiful. So that's why I'm creating these type of videos. I want you to kind of drill on these type of exercises too, as well as doing our normal things that we do all the time here on my channel. You know, we're always doing interesting things. And then we also too, once in a while, we take a little bit of a trip down the rabbit hole, so to speak, and we create some different exercises like this and compositions to brush up on your techniques, methods, and skills that you kind of want to always keep in mind as you're working in watercolor. All right, so let's come back. We're going to, maybe we'll do our green apple next, and then we'll finish up with our orange. Okay, all right, we'll be right back. Okay, we're getting started once again. We're going to lift up our tomato, and we'll do our green apple next. Let's move our green apple over here. And we'll do the same thing. We'll take the green apple and kind of turn it so that we can kind of see the top of the apple. This is almost like a two-dimensional view of the apple. And I'll just put the tape underneath it so you can kind of see what we're working from. So we're just going to have that. Let's see if I can get that to stick nicely. Okay, there we go. All right, there's our green apple. And there it goes. Let's see if we can get some more tape on here. Okay, I'm going to use a little more tackier tape here. I think this ought to work a little better. Like that. There we go. All right, the only thing is we're missing a little bit of the shadow, but you'll kind of see that we're just going to kind of stick with our same game plan. The light's going to be coming again from this way here, from the left over to the right. And we'll just kind of stick with the same game plan of fusing the shadow with the underside of the green apple the same way we did the lemon and the tomato. So when we're painting our green apple here, we're just going to do the same thing. So even though this is a little bit closer to the bottom of the camera, let's see if I can zoom out just a little bit, maybe. There we go. We'll kind of do the same game plan as we've been doing here. And we'll do a light sketch again, just so we can kind of plan out how big do we want to make this green apple in this rectangle here. So we could do our rectangle this way, put a pencil line around it like this, like that. And then we can say, all right, we're going to make this apple, and I'll lightly sketch it just so I like that. I think that's perfect. Pretty much, again, sticking with the same design pattern that we have up here. And then how about the back of the table? Maybe we'll make the back of the table a little bit higher up here. So we've kind of changed the back of the table from one painting to the next, composition to the next. Up here it was halfway. Here it's a little bit lower, lower third of the rectangle. And then here we're going to be like upper third of the rectangle for the table. Okay, so now that we have our preliminary sketch, which is just a basically super light line that only you can see, I might have made it a little darker so you can kind of see what I did here on camera. But if I was doing this, you know, for a painting myself or a composition, I would make it just very, very super light, just so I kind of know, okay, that's about the size of the green apple I want to have here. And then at that point, then I know I can get started with my contour drawing. And then I'm going to start up here at the top. And I'm going to come around this way. Take my time, look at the apple as I go. Okay, and there's a little bit of an oval at the top. And then we have our stem. Like that. Okay, that's our contour drawing. And then we'll add in our shadow, just so we have our shadow in here. Like that. And then again our backdrop here, which is the edge of the table that we're working on. If you're working at home, you can set up your apple on top of a white piece of paper, and then maybe put another white piece of paper behind it so that you have a white backdrop with a white piece of paper on top of the table. Or you can use foam, the white foam board. You can use foam board. I've always used foam board over the years, with maybe like a sheet of watercolor paper behind it. Or sometimes I even make a small foam board with like an L-shaped foam board. So you have a flat piece of foam board on the table, and then you take another piece of foam board and you tape it at the seam where the one foam board ends and the other. I can kind of show you. I think I have one around here somewhere. Oh, I don't see it, but I can kind of, let's see if we can do it here quickly. Okay, so momentarily we're going to just kind of show you a nifty little thing you can do. So you can take two pieces of foam board like this, and they can be any size you want them to be. This happens to be two pieces of watercolor paper, but basically you could use two sheets of foam board like the large sheets. They might be like 2 foot by 3 foot or 18 inches by 24 inches. It all depends, but you can take two of them and set them up and make them into an L like this. And the only thing you have to do is you take the two sheets of foam board, again, any size you want. You take a piece of tape, and then what you do is you tape them together at the seam, like so. So you take the two like this, you take them and you set them up like this at a right angle. So first you take your tape, set that right across there, and then you set them at a right angle like so, and you tape them like that. It'd be better off to use like duct tape, or maybe like a maybe it's better to use like a white tape if you can, if you have like a really good they make, you can find white duct tape or white gaff tape. Gaff tape is really good. I use gaff tape a lot around the studio and the house. But once you tape it together, then you have yourself a nice setup. You have a nice foam backboard like this, like that. And then you can set it up on your table, and then you set your subject on top of that. And then this way, when you're drawing it, you'll have a really good backdrop and tabletop with nice bright white paper or foam board. It really helps a lot. Kind of isolates what you're drawing with not too much busyness behind it. So, okay, we have our apple completed. Let's get started with our apple paint mixes. I'm going to empty each time I do a new bit of subject matter, I'm going to empty my watercolor water container and put in new fresh clean water. That's a key thing. This way we can keep our colors nice and fresh. And I'll just quickly do it. That's all, just a little quick cleanup on the palette. And then for our green apple, let's start out with some yellow. This is cadmium yellow lemon. That looks good. And then some sap green. So I'll kind of mix it across here. And that might be that is actually olive green. Okay, so I have a mixture of the cadmium lemon yellow, maybe even a little bit of cadmium yellow down here like that. And to make it even more exciting, let's add some raw umber for the shadow colors. We'll maybe go down here with our raw umber and maybe some cerulean blue. Raw umber, cerulean blue, maybe a little bit of yellow ochre. There we go. So now we have a wonderful selection of colors. We have it all planned out here on our palette, so there's no stress. Now when we go into paint, we have all our colors already mixed, ready to go. And that's the key, because as you kind of saw when we did these first two, the lemon and the tomato, yeah, we kind of want to work at a good pace. Did you kind of see how we did that? How it kind of works better if we can work at a faster pace, getting these items in here painted in quickly, because then you can fuse your shadows really nicely, quickly. I think it tends to be more of a problem if it takes, like, you'll actually get way ahead of the game if you're mixing your colors first like this and then going in. Now, the key is when you're painting a larger painting and you're maybe having a number of all of these type of things in, let's say, one picture, one painting, then you're kind of feeling the pressure of working more quickly. But if you can kind of mix like this first and kind of get the idea of pre-mixing first in your palette, you could use a larger palette and a lot of times pre-mix mostly all of your colors, or at least the colors you need for the first 20 minutes of your painting, and that's kind of helpful if you know that. So if you want to plan out your painting and you say, well, I have a larger painting with 2 lemons, 3 tomatoes, 1 apple, and then a bouquet of flowers, and then also a china cup. If you're doing a still life like that, you could really just set up your palette, have maybe a larger palette, and then you just take your time in the beginning and set up your palette with all your colors first for the first 10 or 15 minutes before you start painting, so you have all your colors for all those first few items you're going to paint, and then you can go in and start painting them quickly and getting them in. That's really a big help. So let's see how this works now doing our green apple. So the main color here you can see is the light green, and then it gets sort of like around the edges it's more darker green, and we do have that bright spot of light there. And again, we said the light's coming from the left side to the right, so we can take our magic marker, our Sharpie, and just make the light there like that. And then let's start out here, and this is actually over here, so like that. Okay, now we're going to get the more brighter, lighter green started, and I will sort of just make a mark here and just for our bright light spot there. And then I'll start out that wash just like that, easy enough. I just keep my brush on the paper and swirling around. Get a little bit of paint down there in the shadow area, rinse off the brush, dry off a little bit of the paint on a tissue, go back in, maybe get a little bit of the darker green here. A little bit darker green over here, maybe a little bit of the more shadow on this side. Let's get that shadow fused right together there, nicely. Mix in a little bit of that raw umber too. Maybe a touch of cobalt blue just to right at the bottom. Again, we're working quickly. Then I rinse off the brush, dry off a little bit of the water. Again, damp brush. We don't want a drenched brush right now. We'd like to keep that brush sort of just damp. And then I'm looking at the top there. Okay, there we go. A couple splashes. Damp brush. A little bit of cobalt blue. Yellow ochre. A little bit of shadow up there. You could always take your tissue and roll up your tissue a little bit and make a little bit of an extra highlight over here, like that. And that's about all the time we have to get this wash in. And then after that, we sort of want to let that all dry and set up. And I'm going to do some background color here. Like that. Swirl around the paint just a little bit, like so. Damp brush. Like that. Maybe a little bit of blue there, just to a couple interesting spots of color. Maybe some yellow ochre. All right, looks good. I think we're going to let this dry just a little bit. You can also lift up a little bit with your tissue or paper towel if you want to. For some reason you found that there was something that you wanted to lift up a little bit that didn't come out perfect. You can always lift some stuff up, some washes up. All right, so now we'll take a quick break and we'll let this dry and set up a little bit. You can also use a blow dryer if you want to dry this a little quicker, and then we'll do the stem. And maybe, I think the stem is maybe all that we need to do for this exercise. I think we can actually we'll go in and just do the stem now. A little bit of burnt umber and a little bit of cobalt blue. So cobalt blue. A little bit of burnt umber to get a little bit of a darker dark, and maybe some raw umber there too. Yeah, that should be fine. And then I dry off the brush a little bit so we don't have too much paint on there. And then we just take the brush and make a stem. And that should be good. All right, so let's let this dry and we'll actually get started next on our orange. So we have one more to go. We'll do our orange next over here on the right-hand side, and we should have this composition and this tutorial completed. We're having lots of fun, again, practicing up on our light effects, our shadowing effects, our planning of our subject matter with painting, planning our colors, getting our colors pre-mixed in our palette, prepped before we even start painting. This way, when we're going into paint, we got to have everything all set up, ready to go, and then we can just start painting quickly and move fast, move quick to get these rendered quickly, because remember, we're trying to fuse those colors together really nicely. So you kind of see how we have that modus operandum going along here in this tutorial. And this is really a fun thing to practice and to get used to. I use this all the time. This type of way of working I use all the time in my painting, constantly. So, all right, we'll be right back in just a second. Okay, let's finish up and we'll have our orange next. Let's lift up our apple here. So we have our green apple with a little bit of the artist tape on there. Pro brand artist tape, great tape. Let's take a small piece of watercolor paper over here and just cover this. So we'll put our orange up here, make some real estate for ourselves. And let's do that. And then let's set up our orange up here. Like that. Pretty much pretty good. I just have to move it up a little bit like so. Like that. Seat it firmly on there. There we go. Perfect. All right. So that's our orange in a two-dimensional kind of look. You can kind of see the highlight there on the orange peel itself, on the orange. And we have some shadows underneath it. And again, we're going to kind of stick to, again, the same game plan as we did before. Let's do a preliminary sketch here and just say, all right, how large do we want to make this orange within this rectangle? We're doing a composition. How do we want to approach this? Well, let's do this. Let's say we want to make it, we want to fill up this rectangle with lots of subject matter. We wouldn't want to make a small orange looking like this big here. That would look kind of silly. So if you make your orange only this big, that would not look good at all. So we want to fill up this rectangle with plenty of subject matter, so I'm going to erase that. And then we're going to say, well, let's make it, maybe we'll leave like a small amount of space there and a small amount of space there underneath it and above it. And then over here, we're going to be kind of plenty away from the sides of the painting. So we'll start out. And I'm going to do my contour drawing. So the first thing I do is I get my preliminary sketch done. Just let me kind of sketch this here. Okay, that looks about good. Then I'll start my contour drawing. And I notice it goes out straight here, and then it starts to curve. And then over here it curves more this way. Pretty round. As far as seeing it, it's almost like a baseball. It looks pretty round compared to all the other ones we've painted. This one has the most round shape to it. And we're coming up around here. Taking my time again, looking at carefully at the orange, and then we have that. Looks good. Maybe we'll make the table here close to the bottom. And again, if you if you're maybe just starting out, maybe you're just painting and drawing for maybe you're just starting out the first couple weeks or first couple months here on my channel. Don't always worry about things. If you have to use a ruler, take your ruler out. Use a ruler whenever you have to, whenever you want to. It's up to you. I just get that in there like that with the ruler. That kind of just safeguards me to let me know that my table is going to look good. It's going to look level across the picture like that. And then from this point, I think we're good. We're going to need, let's make a little highlight, just a small oval shape on the orange to let ourselves know. Let's leave that white paper for the highlight on the orange itself, on the surface of the orange. Okay, so we have that set. Now we can get ready to paint. What we can do now is do our same process we did before, and it's not going to be anything new. We're going to stick to the same process we did before. We take some paper towel, dampen it with some water, and we'll just go in and clean up our palette just a little bit so we have a nice, clean working surface. Here, doesn't have to be perfect, just the majority of the paint we lift up and clean up. The rest is okay. A little bit of other miscellaneous colors in there is not going to hurt anything. We won't even see it. And then we'll take our water, we'll empty our water and pour ourselves fresh, clean water into our water container. And I also usually scrub out the bottom of my water container with an old brush I have, just so that I get all the sediment off the bottom of the water container. And sometimes when I run out of water in my studio, I usually have my Tropicana water container, orange juice container. I usually have that filled halfway with water all the time, fresh, clean water. If I run out, I always have extra bottle of water in my studio. I always keep a case or two around just to have plenty of drinking water, and also can use it for our watercolors if we need to, if we run out of water. And so we'll use that. And we'll get started. We'll mix up some colors. Here is going to be pretty straightforward. We're going to have orange. That will be our main color we're going to use. That'll be the center of the orange. I would say we can rinse off our brush and get a little bit of cadmium yellow, like that. And we can mix a little bit of orange into that cadmium yellow. And in essence, we'll make it a little bit of a brighter orange with a little bit of that cadmium yellow in there. That will be more toward the center here where you see that bright light. So we're going to kind of make the orange darker as it goes out to the outer perimeter of the circumference of the orange. So, and then we can even add some cadmium red over here, which is going to give us a little more of that darker orange around the outer circumference of this orange. And also we're going to need some cobalt blue for some shadowing, maybe. So we'll make that up here. Again, pre-mix our colors. Let's do that. Does that make sense? Let's get those done. Let's get a little bit of raw umber too mixed in there. Maybe a little bit of yellow ochre. Maybe even a little bit of cerulean blue, like that. Let's get all of our colors out there on the palette first. Good, we have that done. Now we're ready to paint. Let's get some of that bright yellow here in the center, like that, for the orange. Then we go in and get our darker in tonal value orange and red mix for the outer edges, like that. Looks good, looks good, looks good. Then what we'll do is blend in this a little bit. A little bit more of that red there and orange. Okay, now we'll start to work in our shadow really quickly, like that. And we'll mix into that shadow plenty of orange with the blue. And the shadow is darker under here, right where under the underside of the orange, and the shadow gets a little bit lighter in tonal value out toward the edge. And then we'll add a little more of that. Have to work quickly though, because it starts to get a little bit difficult to blend the colors when they dry. So that's why I try to work quickly here, and that's why having all these colors mixed ahead of time will absolutely help. There we go. So that's good. And then a little bit of gold, yellow in there too, and red in the shadows. All right, so we have the shadow color there, blue, cobalt blue, like that. All right, that looks good. Let's get our little bit of our table area over here, the back of the table, some shadowing. Mix up some of this, splash a couple things here and there. A little bit of blue. And if you have a couple splashes that get out of control, that look like there's too much, by accident maybe you splashed a little too much, don't be worried. Grab a tissue quick and just lift up a couple of those spots. And the same thing, if you add too much wash, maybe over here or over here and there, you can always lift up with a little bit of tissue. You can add a little bit of orange. And again, if too much, you can lift up a little bit. You blot up a little bit like that. But I think that's it. I think that's perfect. And again, we can add a little bit of burnt umber and cobalt blue. Burnt umber, cobalt blue. Just for a little bit of the stem here, like that. Damp brush here. And I think that's good. I'm glad you were here to work with me on this tutorial. We had a lot of fun. We not only did 1, we did 2, we did 3, we did 4 beautiful bits of fruits and vegetables here. Orange, green apple, tomato, lemon. Look how good those look. We had fun learning the process that we use all the time in watercolor when we're creating our paintings. And then, we can always lift up the tape, and you can kind of see too, it looks great when you lift up the tape. And you can see that, if you want to, you can always put a mat around this and put it in a frame. If it comes out really good and you like it, you could just leave it like this and pin it up on the wall, tape it up on the wall in the refrigerator. When you have a good bit of success with your practice and your paintings with watercolor, put them up on the wall, sign them. Enjoy them, give them as gifts if people like them, make them into cards, whatever you want to do. It's up to you. You're the artist. You're going to kind of have a fun time of enjoying your watercolors and enjoy your successes when they come out really good. Like that. And then you can sign these too. We forgot. You can always sign them if you want. I'll do a little signatures in each of them. There we go. We'll sign our paintings, our compositions, and then you can do these in larger versions. Take a larger sheet of paper, and you can do these in a larger format. Maybe these will become a little bit larger in size if you're going to use larger sheet of paper, or you can make them smaller even too, and make maybe just like a 5x7 and do one of these in each of the 5x7s. You can kind of get as creative as you like. But again, thanks so much for coming by, painting along with me. We're all here together. We're getting better with our watercolors each week and month after month and even year after year. We're sticking to the game plan and we're enjoying the watercolor journey. It's a journey, it takes time, and just have fun with it. Keep working, keep practicing. When you get tired, just watch videos, look through books, scour the internet, just enjoy things. If you need a break and you're tired of painting and drawing, again, you take a couple weeks off or a couple months off, even if you have to just, regain your excitement about watercolor. I know many times in my career in watercolor, I took breaks for weeks and sometimes even months, just that if I wasn't painting and drawing, then I was looking at videos, watching videos, looking on the internet, checking out paintings, studying paintings, looking through books. So as long as you're kind of making your rounds with all those different bits of information that you can kind of gather for yourself and research, you'll be fine. And again, don't feel bad if sometimes you're tired and you don't want to paint. That's okay. You don't have to always draw and paint every week. You can just watch, enjoy, kick back, and just enjoy the videos. And I always say it's about having fun. You have to have fun with it, enjoy it that way. If it becomes stressful, you're not going to want to do it. So that's why just have a good time with it and never stress over it. It's supposed to be fun part of your life. We have enough stress in our lives. So just, trying to navigate through life. So no worries. Stress-free, have a good time with it. And again, we'll see you very, very soon. We're going to be making a video before you know it. See you soon.